be. But me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 2020 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series where your man Louie T aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2020 NFL Draft using our brand new grading scale from 5 to 1, 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest grade a pick can receive. We will tally up each and every single pick in the draft, divide by the number of selections made, which will yield us an overall grade for that team's draft. We'll then move on to the next team in the series picked by you. That's right, you, the viewer out there, are in total control as this is the You Pick format. Simply be the first to leave a comment in the comment section of this and future videos stating 2 things, the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. Some examples would be Jets, next, Jets, Jets, next. Next, NYJ, you get where I'm going with this. As a matter of fact, the next team up in the series is none other than the New York Jets, Jets, Jets. Now, this is the first draft that GM Joe Douglas will be fully in control of, and I must say, Joe did a pretty damn good job, a bang-up job in his first stint as a general manager in this league. And in New York, they need a ton of talent. They need a whole overhaul in terms of their roster. And, you know, look, you're going to build this thing up from the ground, which is what they're trying to do. They need to figure out the situation they have going on with their all-pro safety and figure that out and get him on board, because you don't want to get rid of guys like that when you're trying to build your program. But if he doesn't want to be there, you move him. But it sounds like they're at an impasse in terms of money. They got to figure something out, because those are the kind of guys you want to build your program around. You don't want to push those guys out the door if you can. So honestly, I don't love your head coach. I think he's a part of the problem, not a part of the solution. We'll see what happens. But Joe Douglas seems to be a part of the solution, not the problem. We'll figure it all out, and time will tell eventually if you have the right guys in place. However, this draft is a start. It's a really good start if you're the New York Jets, because there wasn't enough talent on this team. And honestly speaking, last year when Sam Darnold went down to injury, this team was embarrassing. What they had at quarterback after Sam Darnold went down with the mono for about a good 6 to 8 week stretch was absolutely embarrassing, and no NFL team should be subjected to that kind of quarterback play. So I thought it was imperative that they upgrade not only the roster, but the quarterback position in particular behind Sam Darnold. And I didn't know you were going to ultimately get Joe Flacco, which I thought was a great move. He's not going to be ready when the season starts, but he shouldn't need to be ready, because Sam Darnold will be ready to go, and hopefully he stays healthy and you don't even have to see Joe Flacco on the field. But in the event that something happens, it's good to know you got some backup there, and you drafted a guy. We'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. Let's take a look at what Joe Douglas did in his first draft as Jets GM, and all 9 of the selections made by the Jets in this draft on the screen in front of you. We'll go through each and every single one of these picks. I've got my write-ups and breakdowns of each of these players right here in front of me. I'll be reading from them. We start, of course, in the first round, 11th overall selection. Offensive lineman out of Louisville, Mekhi Becton is the selection. 6'7", 364 pounds, 36-inch arms, ran a 5.10 40, which blew everyone away at the combine. 11 games, 11 starts at left tackle in 2019 for his career. 33 games, 33 starts, 21 of which came at the left tackle position, 12 came at the right tackle position. So he has the ability to play on either side. And the Jets made a ton of moves in free agency to fortify that offensive line, including bringing in George Fant from Seattle. So the question now becomes, do you play Becton at left tackle or right tackle? Is Fant comfortable moving from left to right? Because to me, Becton is a left tackle all day long, all day strong. And so I want Mekhi Becton from day one at left tackle if I'm the Jets, if I can help it. If George Fant can't adjust to the right side and he's much better at the left side, then Becton can go to the right side for the time being. Any way you can get the best 5 guys on the field and fortify your offensive line, that's what you want to do. But this guy is a left tackle, if you ask me. And so that's where I would want to play him. That's where the Jets drafted him to play. But again, if for the betterment of the team, he goes to the right tackle position to allow a guy like George Fant to help you at left tackle, so be it. Nonetheless, I had a first round grade on him, obviously, because he was my #1 overall tackle in this draft. You just can't teach what this guy has in terms of his length, his size, and the athleticism in that one package. He was the third tackle taken in this draft. And look, wherever you had guys situated from 1 to 3, 1 to 4, honestly, was, totally up to you. You could ask 5 different people and you might get 4 different orders of how these tackles come off the board. For me, he was my number 1 tackle, and I think you got the best tackle in this draft. Now, that being said, he's a massive mountain of a man is the first strength. Again, you can't teach what this guy has. And I think 364 pounds might be generous. Now, there is a knock on him a little bit later on. I don't know how true it is. Can't confirm, can't deny it. But we'll talk about it a little bit later on. But he's a big, big man. And the way he's sculpted and the way that he's put together, you just can't teach it. 6'7", 36-inch arms with this kind of athleticism, somewhere around the 370-pound neighborhood. It's just utterly ridiculous. Ridiculous strength. You're watching this guy on tape, and he's just throwing dudes out of the bar left and right, just tossing guys around. I remember, I'm a Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan. I remember watching the very first game of the 2019 season, Notre Dame taking on Louisville, in Louisville, and I remember him tossing aside a couple of our defenders in the running game early in that ball game and saying, who in the hell is that? I had no idea who he was at the time, but I quickly learned who Mekhi Becton was after that football game. His strength is next level. Plus athleticism for his size. Again, a 5'1", 040 for a guy that's approaching 370, 75, 80 pounds maybe is utterly ridiculous. I just can't begin to explain to you how impressive that is. We go Goo Gaga over guys running 4.27s like Henry Ruggs did this past year at the Combine, and we marvel at the edge rushers who are 265 pounds that can run a 4.5. What's even more impressive is a guy that's 370 pounds running a 5'1", 40. That's more impressive than anything that I just mentioned. This is ridiculous. To carry that kind of weight around and be able to move the way that Mekhi Becton does is it's special, is what it is. Vines for arms. 36-inch arms. Guys don't produce that kind of length every day. It's very rare, actually, to have a guy that has arms over 35 inches. Generally with these tackles, you're getting 34 and a half, 35 maybe. If you're lucky, you get 35.5-inch arms. Rarely do you see a guy with 36, 37-inch arms, which we had a couple of guys with some extremely long arms in this draft. You're talking about him. You're talking about Matt Peart that the Giants took in the 3rd round. These are guys with 36 and 37-inch arms. Ridiculous. 38-inch arms. It's crazy the length of some of these tackles in this year's draft. But vines for arms, those arms, the extension he gets on his length is one of the reasons I thought he was one of the best tackles in this draft. Not, of course, his size and athleticism aside. Mover of men. This is a guy that I put in my notes. He's got the hip toss and he's got the pound cake. And the hip toss is him simply exactly what it sounds like. Grabbing a dude under his arms and simply hip tossing him and throwing him onto the ground. I watched him do that numerous times on tape. You talk about the pound cake, and that's just him pounding a guy into submission, knocking him down, and then plopping on top of him. It's different than a pancake. A pancake is, a normal guy getting knocked to the ground and then an offensive lineman pounding on top of him. This is different. This is pound cake. All right. This is slapping your hands down. You fall face first, and then 370 pounds flops on top of you. That's different. That's not a pancake. That's pound cake. Mean streak. He's just a nasty dude, man. This guy is taking dudes and depositing them, 3 rows into the seats. There was one time I watched him block a guy out of the screen. He started well within the range of the camera, and by the time the play was over, that guy was on the sidelines begging for mercy. He just has a nasty streak about him. And again, you don't have to, but it's really nice when you do as an interior, as an offensive lineman, defensive lineman, anybody in the trenches. Usually, nice guys don't win. They finish last. And not always the case, but a lot of times in the trenches, that's how that usually goes. Played against good competition in the ACC. Not great competition, but good enough, not to the point where you're like, hey, didn't really see anybody, didn't really play against anybody worth noting. So got to see how he plays when that level of competition is raised. He played against good enough competition in the ACC. Guys are getting drafted out of that conference. Played against Clemson. So there is examples of him going up against elite level competition. Played against Notre Dame. You got to see him against guys that are going to be playing on Sundays on tape. Availability. This is a guy that in 3 years pretty much started almost every game for the Cardinals. And so you feel good about this guy being available, and that's one of the big things you're looking for when you draft an offensive lineman. He's scheme diverse. With his athleticism, he doesn't have to just be in a power run scheme. He doesn't have to just be in a man-on-man, a man blocking scheme where you're just going forward. You can put him in a zone scheme. You can put him in a ZBS and have him go and reach a guy because he's athletically gifted enough to do so. And then he's got a good arm, long arm of the law, like I talked about, keeping guys at bay with that length. That's a rare attribute for guys, and a lot of guys don't even understand what having arm length means and how to use it to the best of their abilities to really make it work for them. He seems to get that, and sometimes all it takes is one little stab with the long arm of the law, and a guy doesn't even get close to making a move to getting close to the quarterback. So he understands that, and he brings a lot of skills to the table. Weaknesses. Once hands are initially slapped down, takes a while to regenerate another punch. So I talked about that long arm of the law, and that was a great segue. Talked about the long arm of the law and him extending that and getting it out there and contacting guys and keeping them at bay. But what happens when someone slaps that hand down? You get it out there and you're looking to land first, and they slap it down, and now they're trying to turn the corner. You guys got to be able to regenerate a punch, rapidly come back and give you another one to keep you at bay. He's not able to reload fast enough. And so that's sometimes it's a gift and a curse to have a long arm. Sometimes, it's easy to get them out there, not as easy to regenerate another one if it is slapped down. And then if he overextends or transfers his weight too quickly, hard for him to rebound. So I'll give you an example. If he's facing off against an elite speed rusher, and that guy, is giving him fits, maybe not gotten to the quarterback yet, but had a couple of close calls where Mekhi had to, push him around the pocket and just allowed the quarterback to step up. And so let's say he's going up against Von Miller, and Von, the first couple of plays of the game, he just tasted Von Miller's speed and realized, man, this guy ain't no joke. I watched him on tape, but it's a totally different animal seeing him in person. And Sam Darnold barely got off the first couple of plays. So now, in his mind, I got to open up out of my stance quickly, much faster than I anticipated. And so now he's coming out of the blocks, and he's opening up his hips to the outside and trying to get depth on his kick slide so that he doesn't get beat around the edge. And now all of a sudden, Von comes with a crossover, acts as if he's going outside, but goes inside. Now Mekhi Becton has already opened up his hips. He's parallel to the line of scrimmage, and he's in trouble. He can't then turn, redirect, shift his weight to the inside to push Von Miller inside and wash him so that Sam can slide outside and deliver the football. He's just not fast enough a lot of times. That's a lot of weight. 370 pounds is a lot of weight to stop transferring in one direction and then redirect it into another. So you understand that concept of how that can be a little tough for a guy his size. And then this is something else that I wrote down that, I can't confirm nor deny this, but I've heard rumors of this. Some people were really bad-mouthing Mekhi Becton, saying, hey, this is a guy that's going to eat his way out of the league, Eddie Lacy style. I don't know that to be the case. He's a big dude. All right, but there are other guys that are examples of guys that were really big in this league and have been able to stay in this league, like a Trent Brown, and I feel like he's going to be fine. I don't know Mekhi Becton. I don't know if eating is his favorite hobby, is his favorite pastime, and if he gets a chance, he'll eat. And I just feel like we'll find out a lot about Mekhi Becton when this whole period is over, because no one's monitoring him right now. No one's keeping tabs on his daily habits. If he shows up to Jets camp at 405 pounds, then you might have a problem on your hands. If he shows up to Jets camp in great shape at 365 pounds, let's just go with the combine weight, then they should feel really good about the guy that they have. I don't know if he'll eat his way out of the league or not. I don't know him. I can't say. I just know that this guy is dominant and he has things you just can't teach. And that's why he was my number one tackle in this draft. And so in the first round, 11th pick overall, tackle out of Louisville, Mekhi Becton for me is obviously a 5. That's a no-brainer. This guy is a dominant force at the tackle position. And I think he's going to be able to do yeoman-like work for the Jets for a long, long time. We move on to the next draft pick for the Jets. Second round, 59th overall. Wide receiver out of Baylor, Denzel Mims is the selection. 6'2", or 6'3", 207 pounds. Ran a 4.38 40. 66 grabs for 1,020 yards and 12 touchdowns in 13 games in 2019 for his career. 186 grabs for 2,925 yards, 28 scores in 48 games. I had a late first to an early second round grade on Denzel Mims. I thought he had a realistic shot of going at the back end of the first round, and if he didn't, I thought he would be one of those receivers that would have that spillage treatment that spills over from the first into the second and is gone relatively early in the second round, similar to what we saw the Colts do and the Bengals do, them respectively taking T. Higgins and then the Colts taking Michael Pittman Jr. out of USC. I thought Denzel Mims would be one of those kinds of guys that didn't make it in the first, but not going to last very long in the second. And he lasted a lot longer than I thought. You're essentially talking late second round pick here, and where the Jets got him. And so to me, that's tremendous value, number one, because I had him as my number 6 wide receiver in this draft. He went 13th overall in terms of receivers off the board. So I thought you got tremendous value in Denzel Mims. Strengths, size, and speed. He's a height, weight, speed specimen. You know, when you're talking 6'3", over 200 pounds, and you're talking about a guy running south of 4'4", you got all the ingredients for a guy to be dominant at the next level. And so those are the first things you look at. Then you throw into the mix, he's got tremendous length, which equals to a fabulous catch radius. 34-inch arms on a 6'3" frame means you've got some extremely you got an extremely huge target to throw the football at. You've got a nice big window if you're Sam Darnold in the margin of error. You know, you can throw it up high, you can throw it low, you can throw it behind him. And this guy, and we watched him make acrobatic catches at Baylor routinely. And part of the reason he's able to do that is because of that length. So the tremendous catch radius for Denzel Mims. And that's going to help any quarterback, including Sam Darnold. Tremendous body control. That's probably my favorite attribute, outside of course, the height, weight, and the speed, is his body control. When you get past all of the easily low-hanging fruit attributes to talk about, this is the one where you start to dig in and look at Denzel Mims. This is the one that I think is going to serve him best at the next level, is his body control. It's amazing. His ability to contort his body in midair and adjust to balls and go and get them. It's what separates him from some of the receivers. It's why I had him listed so high in a highly regarded wide receiver draft class. It's the reason I had him in my top 7, because of his body control and his ability to contort his body and go and get the football. Physicality at the point of catch. When you're a big time target, when other teams know you're getting the rock, and there's little to no margin for error, you're going to have to make some catches in tight contested windows and situations. You got to be physical at the point of catch, because guess what? That corner is going to be physical with you. He's going to be raking at your arms. He's going to be slapping at the football. He's going to be holding you, tugging you, grabbing you, loving you, hugging you, all of that stuff. And you've got to be able to fight back. And I'm not saying extend the arm and push off and get an OPI, but I am saying protect yourself. All right? Be physical at the point of catch and go and get the football, and Denzel Mims can do that. Run after the catch. He's a guy that is physical with the football in his hands, and because of his 4.38 speed, he can get up and go much faster than slow. And so if he hits the ground running and the ball is thrown to him in a way where he's able to catch it in stride, doesn't have to break stride, he's one of those guys that can go on a slant and go 67 yards for a touchdown. So he's got run after the catch ability. Legit deep threat. And when you run a 4.38, that means you should be able to get over the top of the defense. Saw him do it a million times at Baylor. And so that's something that he also brings to the table. He's a massive red zone threat at 6'3", with 34-inch arms and his physicality at the point of catch, he's the kind of guy you want to throw the football up to in the end zone and have him go and get it. And as I mentioned, he made a ton of plays at Baylor, look routine in the end zone. Will work for food, meaning he will block in the run game. A wide receiver coach once upon a time told me, look, man, you want to eat? You want the rock? You got to work for food. You got to be willing to work for food. And the way you do that is you're blocking the run game. Denzel Mims, willing to work for food. He's physical with those corners out on the perimeter. Weaknesses. Better release off the line of scrimmage. I'd like to see him develop a plan, and he'll get better at this. You know, a lot of times in college football, you're getting free releases. You're not seeing guys because there aren't many great corners in college football, or at least guys that you see on a weekly basis. You may see one or two on the schedule for your entire season. You're not going to see elite corners, so guys are going to give you space. Teams aren't willing to come up and challenge big-time wide receivers for fearing that they're going to run right by them. So you get a lot of free releases. You get a lot of zone coverage in college football as well. Got teams playing cover 3, cover 4. And so you get free releases off the line of scrimmage. You don't have to work on getting off of press coverage. You don't have to work on how to, open up a release to the outside or to the inside to give you room to work your route. And so when he saw press coverage, he wasn't really used to having to deal with it, and he got jammed up by Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game. I felt like he didn't play his best brand of ball. I get it. He had like 3 different quarterbacks in that game as well. That didn't help. But he was getting hemmed up at the line of scrimmage, and he did not handle hands being laid on him at the line of scrimmage very well. So that's something I think he's going to have to get a little bit better at. Another weakness, a little loose with the football during run after catch. 3 career fumbles, 2 of them, however, coming in 2019. That's way too high of a total for a wide receiver. You don't touch it enough throughout the course of the year to have that many fumbles. Like I told you, 66 catches. That means for every 33 grabs or every 33 times he touched the football, and that's not counting jet sweeps and other ways he touched the football, but or passes that might have been behind the line of scrimmage that counted as a run. But we're just going off of catch stats. For every 33 grabs, he's fumbling the football. All right. And it may not sound like a lot, but that's a lot. If a guy catches 99 balls, that means he's fumbling 3 times that season. And 1 fumble is enough for me as a receiver. Really, I don't want you fumbling the football at all, but 1's enough. That's plenty. The more times you put it on the carpet, the more opportunities you give the defense a chance to change the complexity of a game. So he's got to be better in that department. And not only a little loose with the football, sometimes he's a little loose with his concentration. There are concentration drops on film with Denzel Mims. I think that's something else that may have scared some teams away from him as well, is that sometimes you'll see a guy with all the physical gifts and all of the tools and traits and characteristics you're looking for, but not the concentration to catch the football, see it into his hands, and catch the football. So that's something else he'll need to just be better, and I think he will. And then finally, not a ton of NFL routes run. Again, it's not the Art Briles system any longer at Baylor, but they're not running the full route tree, and that's okay. A lot of these receivers aren't running the full route tree and the full gamut and spectrum of routes that they're going to run at the NFL level. In college, they're going to learn that, and so it's not that big of a deal. That's not something I want to get hung up and caught up on. I don't anymore. I used to. I don't anymore because I understand the dynamic there. So I felt like this was a big time needed position of need and pick that you had to make. Early in the draft, address one of your bigger needs. Sam Darnold, a young quarterback, needs weaponry to help him succeed. You need to protect him first, which is what you did with your first pick and all the moves made in the offseason. You allowed your best receiver to move on in free agency. And Robbie Anderson, you needed to replace Robbie Anderson's production and ability to stretch the football field vertically. You did all of that and then some here in the second round, 59th overall with Denzel Mims. My player comp for him is Allen Robinson. I see a lot of the similarities that Allen Robinson came into the league with out of Penn State in Denzel Mims. And if he's able to put it together like Allen Robinson ultimately did, then you've got yourself a stud wide receiver in the second round. For me, Denzel Mims is a 4. Love his production that he put up at Baylor. Love the skill set that you're getting. Now it's all about him putting the whole package together. Now here's where the Jets did a big part of their damage in the draft in the 3rd round. I love when teams stockpile mid-draft picks, 3rd, 4th round. That's where you do your most damage. And if you're going to have 9, 10 selections in a draft, let it be in the mid rounds. Let it be in the 3rd, the 4th, and as late as the 5th. But the 6th, 7th round picks, miss me on 3 or 4 of those. And so the Jets did themselves a huge favor by skipping the 7th round picks. You can have those. Let me get these thirds. And they did it in this draft. I think they had 3 third-round selections, if I'm not mistaken. And so, or 2 3s and 2 4s, or 3 4s. So that's 5 picks in the 3rd and 4th combined. That's how you do it, guys. 3rd round, 68th overall selection. Defensive back out of Cal. Ashtyn Davis is the selection. 6'1", 202 pounds. He reportedly is capable of running a 4.28 40. This guy's a track athlete, so I wouldn't doubt it. And so you see at times when he gets to open up, he can flat out run. I don't know if he's a 4.28 guy with football pads on, but whatever the case may be, if he's running a 4.35, if he's running a 4.38, who gives a shit? That's stupid fast for a safety. So the guy can run. That's essentially what I'm trying to tell you. 1 tackle for loss, no sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 4 pass breakups, 2 interceptions in 11 games in 2019 for his career. 2.5 tackles for loss, no sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 12 pass breakups, 7 interceptions, 1 pick six in 48 games. I had a day 2, late 2nd, early 3rd round grade on Ashtyn Davis, and you got him early 3rd round, so that's right in my wheelhouse, right where I thought he should come off the board. Very intriguing player here. Adam is my 4th safety in this draft. He was the 6th safety ultimately taken in the 2020 NFL draft, so not too far off there either. I'll give you my comp for him a little bit later on, but his strengths, height, weight, speed, specimen. And as we can see with the first 3 picks, the Jets essentially went height, weight, speed specimens with all 3 of their selections. So you see what they're trying to do. You see Joe Douglas's philosophy here. Get the best athletes and we'll coach them up. And that's essentially what you've done at all of these positions. Is you got some of the best athletes at those respective positions, and now you're putting the onus on your coaching staff to keep these guys to be the best players that they can possibly be. Ridiculous athlete. I talked about this guy having a track background. This is a safety that walked on at Cal, got a track scholarship to run at Cal, and decided to walk on to the football team, and it was the best decision he ever made. This guy's a stupid athlete. Can jump, can run. He can do it all. Got ball skills. Tremendous athlete here in Ashtyn Davis. Versatility. And I think that's the thing that you got to be most excited about because of the speed factor and all of the things you feel like this guy's capable to do on the football field. And you watch him at Cal and all the situations that they put him in. This guy played single high safety. He dropped over the slot seamlessly. You can line him up in the box as a blitzer and a run defender. You can also use him in underneath coverage. I think he's still learning the underneath coverage game. I think he's getting better at that. But time at the position and more experience will make him even more dangerous as an underneath defender. But right now, to me, single high safety and over the slot are his 2 best positions right now. And so there's so much you can do with this guy because of the athleticism that he possesses. Ball skills and production to match. Again, this is a guy that was a track guy that's playing football that has shown the ability to attack the football and make plays. And he's got the production to back it up. 12 pass breakups, 7 INTs, in essentially 3 years because he was at Cal for 5 years, but he walked on, and so he kind of redshirted that first year in terms of playing football. The first year he actually played was more of a special teams guy, and it wasn't until year 3 that he actually started getting reps, and that was at the cornerback position. Then as a junior, he finally got on the field as a safety, and then as a senior, he really flourished and showed what he can really do. So you're really talking about 3 years of experience, essentially, with Ashtyn Davis at the safety position and playing defense. So a lot of upside here. That's one of the last strengths that I have is upside. I might as well mention it now that I'm talking about, him having this road to becoming a football player and, all of the rawness that is still here. There's so much untapped potential in Ashtyn Davis because of him being a latecomer to the game and at the safety position. Again, this guy spent the whole year at the cornerback position as well. So you're talking about a lot of moldable traits here with Ashtyn Davis. So again, tremendous. And I hate doing the whole upside thing, but in this particular case, it is apt. Willing to be an enforcer. Sometimes when you get these guys that are tremendous athletes that can run, they really don't want to hit. They if they have to, they'll go in there, shoestring tackle you, but they really don't want to get in the fray. They'd much rather leave that to the defensive line and the linebackers. And, if you need me, I'm back here. Just hit me up. He's one of those guys that wants to get involved. He wants to be a part of the action, doesn't mind coming down and being a physical enforcer and hit you. And so that's something else that needs to be harnessed. We'll talk about that, but at least it's there. Closing burst. I don't have to tell you that the closing burst is phenomenal when we're talking about a guy that can potentially run a sub 4.3. So the closing burst is insane. When this guy triggers downhill and sees it and fires off the gun, it's moving at a rapid speed. Special teams value. I talked about this guy being a special teams player early in his career, so much so that this guy has a kickoff return for a touchdown under his belt. So, in a pinch, if you need Ashtyn Davis to provide you some special teams value, not just as a gunner and running down, making tackles, but also as a returns man, you got a guy here with some experience that is very capable of doing that as well. You go to his weaknesses. Very OC as a tackler. OC is out of control. This guy comes downhill and he's like a chicken with his head cut off. He is just coming down like a screaming banshee, and he has no regard for breaking down and being, sound in his approach to the ball carrier. He's just looking to get down there as fast as he can. And a lot of times he just misses. He gets a piece of the guy, but because he's running so dang on fast and doesn't break down, he just flies by, And so he's got to be better in that. He's got to break down and, have some kind of fundamental approach to getting a guy on the ground. Very tight in the hips. No, he's a little tight in the hips. He's not super tight. If he were very tight, that would really hinder him as a single high free safety, and it would hinder him over the slot. He's a little tight in the hips. You see it a lot sometimes when he's trying to make that transition, when a guy makes his move at the stem of a route, and now he's got to adjust to what that guy's doing, whether it's an in-breaking route or an out-breaking route. You see a little bit of, tightness. His hips aren't extremely oily, okay? But they're oily enough. It's a little tightness there. You could use a little WD-40, but he's good enough. He's fine in that department, but it's a little tight. Extremely raw. For all the upside, the other side of that coin, the other end of the spectrum, is that he's raw. For the upside that you're excited about, he's still wet behind the ears and his breath still smells like Similac right now. So he's extremely green. A lot of things he's got to learn. Currently lacking instincts. All right. He doesn't really trust what he sees with his eyes sometimes. He's lacking awareness. Things are happening around him and he's not quite sure what's going on. And again, all of that will be rectified over time with experience, film watching and studying, and him understanding what he's capable of doing with his body and how he can be a better player by just, seeing reps and getting more experience. So I feel good about what this guy could be, but he's extremely raw right now, if you're the Jets. And maybe you take this guy knowing that maybe things aren't going to work out with your safety. And maybe you're going to ultimately have to move on from Jamal Adams. And if you do, you feel like you got a guy that could potentially be another type of Jamal Adams type player, even though I don't want to say that that's not what Ashtyn Davis is. Jamal Adams is a one-of-a-kind player right now in the league in terms of his ability to blitz and impact the game from a passing standpoint as well. But Ashtyn Davis has a lot of the same characteristics: size, speed, physicality. So, maybe that's what you have in mind for Ashtyn Davis. I don't know. We'll see. It'd be nice to see these two play next to each other, though. What's better? What's better than one athletically gifted physical safety with ball skills? Two of them. So I'd like to see them play next to one another. But this is a interesting pick here. I love it. He was one of my favorite players at the safety position to watch in this draft. Missed the team's bowl game with an injury and a medical red flag at the combine. So that's something else you got to look into. But obviously the Jets have done their homework, I would like to think. So my comp for him is Tyvon Branch. And I'm hoping he's way better than Tyvon Branch ever was. But I remember my Madden playing days when Branch was drafted by the Raiders out of Stanford in 2008. And I remember that was right in the dead heat of my Madden game head days. And there was nothing better than a safety with, 95, 96 speed that you could roam the field and be reckless with. Tyvon Branch was that. And he came into the league. And you see a lot of the same characteristics with Ashtyn Davis. The problem with Tyvon Branch was he never fully put it together. He was just an athlete playing football. He never became a football player that's a tremendous athlete, and there's a big difference. So you're hoping that Ashtyn Davis is able to put it all together, and I'm hopeful that he will be able to. Nonetheless, in the third round, 68th overall selection, safety out of Cal, Ashtyn Davis for me is another 4 for this Jets team in the draft. As we move on to the third round, yet again, 79th pick overall, edge rusher out of Florida, Jabari Zuniga is the pick, 6'3", 264 pounds, 33-inch arms, 7 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, no forced fumbles, no pass breakups in 2019 for Jabari Zuniga, whose season was cut short to just 6 games due to an injury. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. For his career, 34.5 tackles for loss, 18.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 1 block kick for the life of his career. I had a third round grade on Jabari Zuniga, so you taking him in the third round is right in my wheelhouse. I had him as my 6th edge rusher in this draft. Guess what? He was the 6th edge rusher taken in this draft. So spot on there as well. I'll give you my comp for him a little bit later on, but strengths, dynamic get off. He's one of these guys with, the first couple of steps just being explosive out of the blocks. And if you're one of these unsuspecting tackles or one of these guys that's heavy-footed and you get out of your stance slow, you're going to struggle against a Jabari Zuniga. His get off is pretty damn dynamic. Disruptive and quickness and aggressiveness. Disruptive with quickness and aggressiveness. He's just a disruptive guy. When you watch him on tape, he's all over the backfield, getting in the mix, not necessarily making the tackle, but blowing stuff up. And it's his quickness. I just talked about that dynamic get off. It's his quickness. It's his ability to react before the guy in front of him does. And that's usually a winner at any level. NFL, college, it really doesn't matter. You use quickness to your advantage. You're able to get a jump on the snap count, and you're a fast guy off the ball. You're going to win. You're going to create issues for the guy in front of you. So that's Jabari Zuniga in a nutshell there. A good dip and rip. When you're an explosive athlete off the edge, you really limit yourself if you can't dip and rip to bend the corner. If you don't bend well, if you don't have that kind of flexibility and you're stiff turning a corner, all of that explosion is good, but it's not going to be maximized. You'll never fully be able to maximize. Similar to a cornerback that doesn't have LLC properties, meaning look, locate, and contest. If you don't look back for the football as a DB, you can be the best athlete in the world, have everything that a team is looking for, but if you can't find the football, you'll never maximize all the gifts you've been blessed with. And so to be able to have that dip and rip, to turn that corner, bend at an angle that makes it tough for that tackle to push you around, and then rip, finish him off, and get those hands out of there, that's a really big time thing for an edge rusher coming to the NFL level. Played up and down the defensive line, often won with sheer quickness inside. And that's what I was talking about, disruptive with quickness and aggressiveness. This is a guy that at Florida, they would reduce him inside. And it's nothing to see Jabari Zuniga as a 3-tech rushing the quarterback. It's nothing to see him on the opposite side as a 1 rushing. They moved this guy all over the place. He was standing up 2-point stance, 3-point stance, inside, outside, and as a 9 technique on the outside, as a 4. He was all over the place. So with guys with that kind of flexibility and that kind of diverse nature to their game, it bodes well for them at the next level, because that means you can do so many different things with them. And that quickness, if you think it wins well inside, wait till you take that quickness and you put it inside. So tremendous closing speed. This guy's a tremendously gifted athlete. His biggest thing is he's just got to stay healthy. We'll talk about that. But when you talk about his athleticism and the quickness, that's great. But then what accentuates it and takes it to the next level is that once he shakes free from that offensive lineman, it's 0 to 60 real quick to the quarterback or the ball carrier. His closing speed is tremendous. And so he takes it to another level once he's able to shake free. And now he's in the lap. He's at the doorstep of that ball carrier or quarterback. Lots of undeveloped talent. The upside, again, I hate talking upside because just about everybody coming from the college game to the pros should have upside. You're not taking them for where they are right now. You're taking them for what they should be in 3 to 5 years. Well, some guys have more upside than others, whether it's because of injuries, like in the case of Jabari Zuniga, or they just have untapped talent. They just, for whatever reason, have so much to offer that they haven't unlocked yet. And you get excited when you talk about some of those guys, like a Ashtyn Davis, for instance. So much talent, but he's so raw that you feel like, man, if we get this guy playing at his best, at his maximum peak efficiency, we got something here. Same thing could be said for Jabari Zuniga. Weaknesses. Doesn't show a consistent ability to be a factor in the run game. You know, some of that may be Florida moving him all around. Some of it may just be the fact that he's just not good at shedding defenders and getting to ball carriers. And that's why the quickness aspect to his game is so important, because if he doesn't win initially right off the snap, you got him. And so he's going to have to get better at that, because you're not going to win off the snap with quickness all the time. Usually quickness wins with the element of surprise. You got the tackle or the guard or the center looking for one thing and you come with quickness. You know, they're looking for the bull rush, you come with quickness. So once a guy is onto your tricks and the quickness isn't working, you got to have other ways to free yourself up. Extremely raw, still needs more seasoning. And I kind of spoke to that when I talked about his upside. Well, again, when you talk about extreme upside, there's also the end of the spectrum that says that you're extremely raw and that you may not be ready to contribute at a high level at this point. And so that's also something to take into consideration. Has to continue to develop a better football IQ. I think at times you see a guy that just isn't sure of what's going on around him. He loses track of the football. He bites down on fakes. And so they fake a screen one way and throw the screen back the other way. He's all out of sorts. You know, you want to see a guy that understands what the offense is trying to do to him. If a lineman who's been blocking you tooth and nail the entire game all of a sudden olays and allows you in the backfield and you have to do little to nothing, next to nothing to get there, it's a screen, dude. He's not letting you back there for his health. It's a screen, so understand what he's doing and play it as such. Either you're going to get to the quarterback and impact the screen in a ridiculous fashion, or you're going to bat it down, or you need to get out there and impact it by getting to the running back. So, and then finally, injury concerns. Injuries plagued him in 2017 and hampered him again in 2019. Had a high ankle sprain that limited him to just 6 games in 2019. So, again, that's something else to keep in mind when talking about Jabari Zuniga. But my comp for him is Jerry Hughes, the longtime Buffalo Bill edge rusher. Started his career out of TCU in Indianapolis with the Colts, was traded to the Buffalo Bills, and really saw his career take off once he got to Buffalo, and has been a productive member of the Bills football team, getting to the quarterback ever since he's gotten there. So I see a lot of the same characteristics and traits of a Jerry Hughes in Jabari Zuniga, and if you get that out of him, you'll have, in the 3rd round, 79th pick overall, Jabari Zuniga will be a 4 for you. I think that the sky's the limit for this guy. You haven't had a dominant edge rusher in New York for the longest. I mean, it's been years. I can't think of the last guy. Is it Mark Gastineau? Has it been that long? I'm probably over-exaggerating, but I can't think of the last guy you had that was a perennial double-digit sack getter. You're starving for a guy to come in and get after the quarterback at a high level. Hopefully, Jabari Zuniga can morph into that for you. The next guy taken in the draft by the Jets in the 4th round, 120th pick overall, running back out of Florida, Mekhi Becton is the selection. 5'11", 216 pounds, ran a 4.6 240. I thought that was going to kill him in this draft in terms of where he was taken. It ultimately didn't kill him, and I'm glad, because he's a really good football player. Does everything well, nothing great, but everything extremely well. 132 rushes for 676 yards and 6 scores. 40 catches for 262 yards and 5 scores. So you see the diversity there, and his ability to both catch it and run it and be a factor in both. For his career, 493 rushes for 2,485 yards and 22 scores, to go along with 72 grabs for 674 yards and 8 scores in 50 games. So again, you see the versatility that Mekhi Becton brings to the table. I had a late day 3, late 4th, early 5th round. I didn't have a late day 3. I had a day 3 grade on him, and my day 3 grade was late 4th, early 5th round. You get him here in the 4th round. So that's solid by my estimation. I had him as my 11th rated running back in this draft. Guess where he went? 11th running back off the board. So spot on there as well. I'll give you my comp for him. And it's a guy you know all too well in New York. Size. At 5'11", 216, that's the going rate for an NFL caliber running back. Right around 215 pounds. Teams generally don't like their running backs too tall, but 5'11" is perfectly fine. And so he's got good size. Acceleration. For a guy that is not extremely fast, he can get to his top speed. Now, his top speed isn't elite top speed, but again, your top speed is your top speed. How fast you get to that top speed is a big thing, you know? And he gets to his fastest speed very quickly. So his acceleration is very deceptive because even though he's not running 4.4, he gets to 4.62 really fast. Really, really fast. Quickness. I think that's one of his best attributes is his ability to be quick. And that quickness allows him to set up blocks, kind of be patient. And we'll talk about his patience here in a second. But be patient. But then once it develops, he can hit it and go much faster than slow. So his quickness is a big coup for him. Pass pro. He's one of the better pass blocking running backs in this draft. Really pleased with what he does on 3rd downs, whether it's catching it out of the backfield, running it out of the backfield, or protecting the quarterback in the backfield. Either way, I feel like he's a guy that early on in his career can get on the football field on 3rd downs and help you immediately because of what he's able to provide in the pass pro department. Physicality, whether he's carrying the football or protecting his quarterback, he doesn't mind putting his body on the line. So there's a level of physicality that you have to be impressed with when you're talking about La'Mical Perine. Pass catching ability, I've kind of already highlighted that when I gave you his stats. This guy can catch the football, and they threw it to him a ton. And he runs pretty solid routes out of the backfield. A nice little Texas route, break a dude off at the stem, get open over the middle of the field, makes himself an inviting target for the quarterback. And so he does a lot of things in the pass game as a pass catcher. And so I think that is also something that you should be really excited about with La'Mical Perine. Patience. I talked about his quickness, and the patience is something that he does a really good job of setting up his blocks and being patient, not outrunning his blockers, but allowing them to get to those guys at the 2nd level so that he can run off of their blocks. So he's pretty patient. And a wise man once told me, patient to explode through, in terms of the whole La'Mical Perine kind of lives by that mantra and that adage. And then yards after contact. You know, he's got the ability to get yards after being contacted. He's a physical guy. I talked about the physicality that he plays with. So that's something else that he brings to the table that makes him an exciting back. Weaknesses. He lacks top end speed. I'm not going to harp on that too much, but the 4.6 240 is what it is. It doesn't define him as a back, but he's not going to run past a lot of guys. Now, again, if they don't have the angle, they may not catch La'Mical Perine, but if they've got an angle and they've got any kind of speed, they should be able to track him down or at least force him out of bounds. Pam Mom, and I talked about this already, proficient at many, master of none. There isn't one trait that he has that kind of stands out clearly above the rest. I mean, if you wanted to put his pass pro or his 3rd down ability, his ability to catch it and pass pro together as a package, maybe that stands above the rest of the things that he does. But nothing that La'Mical Perine does necessarily jumps out at you and you go, oh my God, this guy is so amazing at this. He's just really good at everything, you know? And there's no shame in that. None whatsoever. 3 down back traits. I put down 3rd down back production. So to me, he looks like a 3rd down back at the next level. You know, you look at his numbers, only 132 rushes, only 40, and then, you know, the 40 catches kind of speaks to him being used in a 3rd down capacity. But he shared the workload at Florida, was never really the guy at Florida in terms of carrying the football. So, you know, he kind of gives you the 3rd down running back change of pace vibe, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's what he has to be at the next level. We'll see what happens with him. And then make you miss. He doesn't have a lot of make you miss. His quickness is best used to set up blocks and explode off of those blocks, but not necessarily making guys miss out in space. That's not what he does at a high clip. Every now and again, he might be able to stick his foot in the ground and make a guy miss, but that's not necessarily what La'Mical Perine is all about. In my notes, I put, if you want the best of LaMichael Perine and you only have time to watch one game that he played in, go watch him in a bowl game, his final collegiate game versus the Virginia Cavaliers. That's the game where I fell in love with LaMichael Perine and said, this guy can do it at a high level, at the NFL level. That game right there is the one, the end-all be-all for LaMichael Perine. Never more than 172 total touches in any season at Florida, which kind of speaks to what I just said of him potentially having that third down back kind of feel. Not necessarily your first or second down guy, even though he can be, but more of a third down back. And more of the guy that you want in a game on 3rd and 8. And so never more than 172 touches, which is a good thing. That means he's got low mileage on the odometer, but it also says not really a guy that's a workhorse. So you can take it either way you want. And 4 career fumbles, 2 of them lost. So that's not bad. 1 in 2016, 2 of them in 2017, 1 in 2018, and then none in 2019. So he's trending in the right direction. I'd like to keep that last total from 2019 going into the future of 0 fumbles. So I like this pick, and I thought he was going to be hurt by his speed a little bit. I'm glad to see that a team was able to see past that and understand the value in a LaMichael Perine. And so in the 3rd round, 120th pick overall, running back out of Florida, LaMichael Perine for me is a 3. Quality back, a guy that I think is going to be able to help the Jets. My comp for him is Bilal Powell, a guy that you know all too well in New York that has played some good football for you, has a lot of the same characteristics as a Bilal Powell. Not necessarily going to make you miss. Very physical with the ball in his hands. Can do everything. Can catch it out of the backfield. Can run in between the tackles. LaMichael Perine reminds me so much of Bilal Powell. And if he can play like that, that'll be a good get for the Jets. As we move on to the next pick. Now, another 4th rounder. And I talked about 3 4th-round picks. The second of these 3 4th-rounders for the Jets. 125th overall. Quarterback out of Florida International, James Morgan, is the pick. 6'4", 213 pounds, 357 passing attempts, 207 completions, which is a 58% completion percentage for 2,560 yards, 14 touchdowns, over 5 interceptions in 13 games. For his career, and that was in 2019, for his career, 683 passing attempts, 420 completions, which equals out to a 62% completion percentage for 5,287 yards, 40 touchdowns, 12 INTs in 25 games. This is a guy that transferred from Bowling Green. So he started out his career at Bowling Green, ended up at Florida International, and played well and helped them win some ball games. I had a late day 3 to undraftable grade on James Morgan, so obviously I felt like this was way too soon for him in the 4th round, but you get your guy when you feel the need to get your guy. Doesn't mean I have to love it. If you think he fits what you do best, and there were other quarterbacks that either didn't get drafted in this draft at all or got drafted later on, like a Jake Fromm, that I just felt like were way better than James Morgan. But maybe that guy doesn't fit your scheme and what you want to do, and Morgan does. Cool. I don't have a problem with it. I'm going to make you pay for that. All right. But I don't have a problem with it. I understand. He was my 10th quarterback in this draft. He went 7th overall in this draft in terms of coming off the board. I'll give you my comp for him a little bit later on. Good NFL QB size. I mean, at 6'4", 213, you'd like to see him put on a little bit more weight. 213 for a guy with a 6'4" frame isn't ideal. You'd like him to be, 220, 225 at 6'4", but whatever. 6'4" is the height you're looking for, and you'd like him to be a little bit bigger, And it's not like this guy's a tremendous athlete. He's not a slug or a slouch, but he's not, the biggest athlete either. So if you're not going to run around, what difference does it make? Put on a couple pounds to allow you to be able to sustain a little bit of punishment in the pocket. Above average arm talent. He can sling it, man. His arm is live. Sometimes it's too live. He's putting too much mustard on some of these passes and airmailing them, and that's something we'll talk about a little bit later on. But he's got a live arm. Gunslinger mentality. Because his arm is good, it's NFL good, he trusts it a little bit too much, to a fault at times, but he's got that gunslinger mentality. Feels like he can fit it in there. He's not afraid to take risks and chances. Some teams love it, other teams don't. Bottom line is, even if he makes a mistake, he's not going to be afraid to try it again if he feels like he can get it in there. Toughness. I watched him in a game early in 2019 where he got his brains bashed in, and he just kept getting up and kept fighting and kept giving his team a chance. I want to say it was against Florida Atlantic, but whatever the case may be, it might have been against the Hurricanes. Can't remember which game it was, but man, he took a beating, an absolute shellacking in that game. It seemed like snap after snap, he was getting hit, and these were vicious hits, and he just kept coming back. So there is some toughness here to James Morgan. We'll take what the D is giving him. He's not afraid to check it down. If they're dropping into a coverage and they won on that snap, they got the right coverage for the play that was called, he's not afraid to take the check down, get 6 yards, and move forward. You know, a wise man once told me, you can't go broke making a profit. And if they're giving you on 2nd and 10 a 5-yard check down, take the 5-yard check down. You know, it takes quarterbacks a while to kind of figure that out. You know, if they're giving you 5 on 2nd and 10, now it's 3rd and 5. That's much more manageable than 3rd and 10. Take the 5-yard check down and keep it moving. And he's not afraid to do that. Weaknesses: lacks real pocket mobility or feel. Sometimes he's a sitting duck back there, and he just doesn't have the awareness of what's going on around him. As a quarterback, there has to be this innate feel of when you're in danger. There has to be this internal alarm clock that goes off that says, hey, James, I got to get out of here right now. We got to go. We can't stay here. It's not safe here. And he just doesn't seem to have that. He's in the pocket, cold chilling, got a nice cold beverage in his hand, looking for his chips, and where's the remote? And next thing you know, he's getting pulverized and the ball's coming out. And I'm like, dude, how long did you think you had to chill back there? Get rid of the football. So, you know, I don't think he really understands how to maneuver the pocket, how to buy just another second for himself to get rid of the football. He lacks that feel and that mobility that you're looking for from an NFL starting caliber quarterback. Not a great athlete, as I mentioned. Again, it amazes me that he goes here, but a guy like Jake Fromm is penalized for not being a great athlete. And I get it. He doesn't have a big-time NFL arm either, but to me, he was a much better backup quarterback in his league than James Morgan. And if you saw what you guys went through last year with Sam Darnold and the mono and what you put on the field, Luke Falk and company, and all the bums you put on the field, and just the horrid product that you put forth week in and week out without Sam Darnold in the lineup, you would think that you would want a guy that could come in and steady the ship and not add more fuel to the fire. James Morgan, to me, is a boom or bust backup option. You know, he's not a starting caliber quarterback, but you needed a guy. I would have preferred you have taken Jake Fromm, and he was available at the time of this pick. But, you know, it is what it is. Makes poor decisions under duress. You put pressure on James Morgan, and you're going to force him to do something he shouldn't do. And so he doesn't make smart decisions. He doesn't make accurate throws a lot of times. I've seen him put some balls in some pretty risky situations where I'm like, dude, you are really fortunate that didn't get picked off. Like, he does some really questionable things when pressure is applied to him. And we know it's easy when you got a clean pocket to step up and rifle the football. What really makes an NFL quarterback, really separates a lot of guys, is what do you do when the pocket is closing around you, when you feel a little distress? What do you do with the football then? You know, how do you deliver the football in those types of situations? Anybody can do it when there's space and opportunity. What do you do when the walls are closing around you, when there's pressure on you, when you've been hit a bunch? I don't necessarily love what he does with the football when he feels pressure. And ball tends to sail on him and doesn't consistently hit the deep ball. I mean, that 58% completion percentage speaks volumes. And sometimes those numbers can be misleading if you don't watch the tape. If you watch a guy and if you don't watch a guy, you just go off the box score and you look at his completion percentage. Oh, this guy's not completing a high hit rate, of his throws. And you say, oh, this guy's not an accurate passer of the football. Well, sometimes that could be the case. And other times he may have guys dropping the football. He may have guys that should have caught the ball but didn't. That wasn't the case for James Morgan. A lot of errant throws, a lot of balls being airmailed. And so I don't trust him as a guy that is consistent enough for my liking at the NFL level, which is why I had a late day 3 to undraftable grade, and I thought you pulled the trigger on him way too soon. My comp for him is Matt Cassell, a.k.a. Matt Castle, that has been a quality backup and at one point was a starter in this league for the Kansas City Chiefs, but really is nothing more than a backup in this league and has been for the last few years. And so I don't love this pick. 4th round, 125th pick overall. Quarterback out of FIU. James Morgan for me is a 2. I didn't love this selection. I thought the Jets kind of reached here. They were desperate at quarterback last year after all of the miscues at the quarterback position when you had Sam Darnold go down, and I think they overreacted and reached for a guy here instead of taking the guy that made the most sense, which was Jake Fromm at this point. Again, Jake Fromm might not fit what you want to do schematically. Might not have enough arm strength and the intangibles that you're looking for, and James Morgan does. But at the same time, he's not as efficient. And so I wonder about whether he'll be able to help you in that regard or not. But we move on to the next selection in this draft. 4th round, the 3rd and final 4th round pick for the Jets in this draft. 129th pick overall. Offensive lineman out of Charlotte. Cameron Clark is the selection. 6'4", 308 pounds, 34-inch arms. 13 games, 13 starts at left tackle in 2019. For his career, 49 games, 35 starts at left tackle. I had a 5th round grade on him, so went a little bit earlier than I thought he was going to go. One of the reasons I knew about Cameron Clark coming into this process was because of the Redskins having discussions with him in the early stages of the draft process. They met with him at the combine. They were really impressed with him, and it was a report that if he were there in the 5th round, the Redskins were going to take him. So I thought that's right around where he was going to go. The Jets saw otherwise and decided to pull the trigger on him in the 4th round. And I don't have a problem with them doing that because I think him moving to guard, and I don't know what the Redskins were attempting to do with him, but him moving to guard is a really good change for him, and I think he's going to excel at the next level. Quality, length, and size. Kicking inside with 34-inch arms and having that tackle experience is paramount. It's something that, teams really love when a guy has tackle experience and some length to go with it, to go inside with, and he has that. Quality size, quality length. You kick him inside and you feel like he's just going to do big-time things for you if you're the Jets. He's a nasty boy. Nasty boy. He's a nasty boy. I mean, he would have fit right in with Jerry Sags and all of those guys, with the armpits and being a little musty, a little rough around the edges, a little mohawk action. He's nasty, man. What he's doing to dudes on the field, I've seen guys get arrested for. Handcuffs, hands behind the back. He's really, really nasty, man. After the whistle, he's flying around again, kind of straddles that line between, hey, you could get a penalty here, man. Be careful. And, hey, pat on the back. Attaboy. Real nasty, man. Pushing guys around, being physical. The officials blowing the whistle. He's still blocking. Guys going down, and he's throwing a guy over the top of the pile. Just really nasty stuff, man. Really physical, really vile stuff you love if you're an offensive line coach. Really, really physical, man. And I mean, think about what I said earlier with Mekhi Becton. He's physical. He's a nasty boy. You're getting another one here. You look at what they're trying to build up front. They're trying to build an identity. And I think they want to establish the line of scrimmage. And guys like Cameron Clark and Mekhi Becton are going to help you do that. Physical man mover in the run game. Again, this is what he does best. He struggles in the pass pro department, at times. And that's part of the reason why that switch to the guard position is imperative. But, man, does he move guys in the run game against their will. He sustains, does a really good job to fight to sustain his block. And so that's something else I can appreciate with Cameron Clark. Gets out of blocks with above average kick slide and good depth. He does a really good job of coming out of his stance, and getting good depth on that kick slide and eating up some ground and really being able, because he's not the shortest, and the fleetest of foot. So, to be able to see him get out of his stance, get out of the blocks, open up his legs, get that stance going, I think and still keep a really nice base in the process of doing that. That was pretty impressive, especially when you see how heavy his feet are. Solid on down blocks and double teams, man. With him, he doesn't even need help. You give him help, and I'm watching him double team a guy and push him 7 yards up the field. He's that kind of player when in terms of moving guys in the run game. You give him an extra hand. You give him the help of the guard next to him or the center now that he's going to be a guard. You give him some help. Oh, this guy's going to be taken for a ride. really good showing versus Clemson. I think that was the game for most people that they said, all right, Cameron Clark can do it at the NFL level. That's big time competition, a huge step up versus what he was seeing in his conference. And, you see him against Clemson and you say, okay, those are big boys right there. Those are NFL caliber players. And he didn't look out of place. He didn't look like a fish out of water. He looked like he belonged. And I think that was the game that put him on a lot of people's radar there. Weaknesses. Heavy feet, lacks lateral agility. You see it when he opens up and a guy goes inside on him. Or a guy starts to dance in front of him and he didn't lay hands on him. And he can't mirror. He can't go laterally. And too many times, I'll give you another example of one of his weaknesses that kind of bang homes that point that I just made. Too sluggish of a response time to threats attacking inside shoulder, or what is formerly known as the B gap. Him being a tackle, you attack his inside shoulder, that's the B gap. And so it was amazing how slow he was. And unless he didn't see it, and I'm thinking he's looking right at this dude, and this guy is getting right past him, and it's almost like he's a sloth, and he doesn't have the ability to get to that guy fast enough, and he can't move his feet. And I'm like, there's no way that guy should be able to squeeze between you and the guard. If you just scoot over, there's a wall there that he can't slide through. And it's like he can't move fast enough because he doesn't have that lateral quickness and agility. And that guy's able to sliver through that crack between him and the guard. And now he's holding. Speaking of which, once he's beaten in pass pro, resorts to holding. A ton of holding is charged to this man's account. He's got a lot of debt in terms of holding penalties, man. A lot of debt. I saw him accumulating a lot of penalties, man. I was like, whoo, you got a lot of stuff you got to pay off on your account, brother. A lot of holding penalties. He's got to be a lot better moving forward. And that's why this final weakness is imperative. We'll have to kick inside the guard due to lack of lateral agility and inability to mirror. He just can't stay in front of guys sometimes. And that means it's too much space and opportunity. Can't put him out on an island where there's nothing but space and opportunity. You got to put him inside where it's condensed, where there's not a lot of space to his left or his right. There's somebody next to him, and there's a lot less space he's got to cover because, frankly, he cannot. And so I think the move inside the guard is going to do wonders for him. He's a physical road grader and a nasty dude that I think most offensive line coaches would love to coach. And so love this selection here in the 4th round. 129th pick overall. Offensive lineman out of Charlotte, Cameron Clark, for me, is a 3. As we move on to the 5th round, 158th pick overall, cornerback out of Virginia, Bryce Hall is the selection. 6'1", 202 pounds, 32-inch arms, 3 tackles for loss, 1 sack, no forced fumbles, 4 pass breakups, no INTs in 6 games in 2019. 9.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 39 pass breakups, 22 of which came in 2018, which was the most in college football in 2018, to go along with 5 interceptions in 44 games for his career. So this is a guy always around the ball, getting his hands on the football. Wasn't able to put a 40 time on record because of the ankle surgery that he was required to have that saw him miss more than half of this season this year, which is why he only played in 6 games. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But in any event, reportedly he's a 4.5, 4.52, 4.57. That's where I would put him when I watch him on tape, somewhere in that 4.52 to 4.57 range. I don't think he's any slower than that. And so, some people are turned off by that. Others aren't. Just depends on what you're going to ask him to do and how he responds to the injury that he had. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, as I mentioned. I had an early day 3 grade on him. So 4th or 5th round is where I thought he would come off the board. Honestly, had this injury not taken place, you're talking about a 2nd round corner here in Bryce Hall, more likely than not, no later than a 3rd round. He's a day 2 player without the injury for sure. I had him as my 11th cornerback in this draft, even with the injury. He was the 18th cornerback taken, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that teams weren't able to lay hands on him and actually evaluate his injury because of the 19. And so this is a guy that I think kind of was hurt by the injury and teams not being able to really assess his injury and his progress. I'll give you my comp for him a little bit later on, but strengths, outstanding size and length for the cornerback position. You know, you're talking a guy 6'1" with 32-inch arms for the cornerback position. That's phenomenal. That's, if you drew it up, that's right around what you're looking for. You know, you don't get it a lot, but when you do, you're really fortunate to get that in one body at a cornerback position. Physical at the line of scrimmage. That's where he does most of his work, is at the line of scrimmage. Wants to lay hands on you, wants to come up in your face, delete the airspace, and baptize you. Wants to lay hands on you. And if you're not accustomed to having that done, you're going to struggle with a guy like Bryce Hall being in front of you. Keys quarterback's eyes like a hawk from off coverage. That's why he gets his hands on so many footballs, because a lot of times he's coming up and pressing and bailing, and he's able to key quarterback's eyes, and in doing so, he's able to then stick his foot in the ground and, you know, track the football. Speaking of which, plant and drive. He's got the ability to stick his foot in the ground, drive on the football, and it allows him to contest just about everything underneath. And because he contests everything underneath, next strength, no free meals underneath, all right? Even wide receiver screens aren't free of charge. If you want to eat, you're going to have to pay against Bryce Hall. Nothing's free, nothing cheap, nothing's easy, okay? You want the 5-yard out, you want the 10 back to 8, come back to the outside. You want, you know, something quick, the 10-yard, the 8-yard stop route, the 7-yard stop route. You're going to have to work for that. He's not giving up many free meals. You want to eat, you're going to have to pay for it. You know, pull out your debit card, swipe it, because he's not giving up free meals. No handouts out here. LLC properties. Love the fact that he looks, locates, and contests the football. Again, if you're going to do that, you maximize your potential at the cornerback position. If you don't look back for the football, how do you know where the ball is? If you don't know where the ball is, how do you pick it off? How do you make a play on it? Got to do that. He does. So that's something I love about Bryce Hall. Gets his hands on the football. Talked about the 39 pass breakups in 44 games. So essentially, we're talking about just a shade, a hair under one pass breakup per game. You know, it's an insane number, especially for a guy that a lot of times in his career wasn't getting targeted because teams just said, look, you're Bryce Hall. You're good. You're not great, but the other guy's nowhere near you, so we're just going to target that guy. So that's a lot of pass breakups. All right, a lot of him getting his hands on the football, in addition to the 5 interceptions. And he's a willing tackler. He'll come up and hit you. He'll come up and wrap you up, get you on the ground. So that's also something that you like to have in your cornerback. Weaknesses, his speed. Obviously not a speed demon, you know, and because he doesn't have that kind of long distance speed you're looking for, I think his makeup speed is lacking. When guys get on top of him, he finds it a little tough to rebound. And so that's also something that may have turned some teams off is, you know, if this guy isn't on top of the receiver, if he's not playing cover 3 or cover 4 and staying on top of that guy, is he able to get back into play from man to man if that guy gets on top of him early in the route? Some of those pass breakups, they should have been INTs. 39 is a high number. Usually when I see a number that high, first I think, man, that's impressive. The next thing that I think of immediately is, that's too many damn pass breakups. You sure you couldn't have caught some of those? You know, and in the case of Bryce Hall, yes, he could have and should have caught. I saw at least 4 passes that he defended, and I'm like, dude, you should have caught that. You could have caught that. You should have made a play for your team right there. So there's that as well. Eyes can be bigger than his stomach, all right? And a great example of this is him versus Pitt. He's in off coverage. He's playing cover 3, press and bail, and so he comes off the ball and he's keying quarterback's eyes, and that receiver just gives him a slight little hezzy. Not much, just enough, because this guy's so gritty and his eyes are so big and his stomach, it's big, but it's not as big as his eyes. He thinks he can eat everything that he sees. He's so hungry, he wants to eat. And so even though he's full, he still wants more. His eyes are like, man, we can have that too. And so he bites on the bait. He stops his feet. He's going to plant and drive, and that guy takes up off the field. And the quarterback rolls out, and he sees a route, and this is where you can get yourself into trouble. He sees an outbreaking route, and he sees the quarterback rolling out, and he's thinking to himself, this quarterback's probably going to take this out-breaking route, and if I jump this, I can get an interception. Meanwhile, remember, he's in cover 3, deeper than the deepest, wider than the widest. He's supposed to be running with the guy that he started out the play checking, essentially, that's running all the way up the field. And he let that guy go. There's nobody back there, and the quarterback sees him late. And Bryce Hall realizes, oh, shit, what have I done? And he turns and he hauls ass, and the quarterback throws a lame duck that stays in the air forever, and he's able to get back into play and hit the receiver as the ball gets there and dislodges it. Had that quarterback thrown that football out there and allowed that receiver to run, he walks in the end zone with about a 10-yard cushion. So that's what I'm talking about. Eyes bigger than his stomach. Sometimes he loses discipline, and that's what happens generally with guys that are greedy that want to make plays. And then injury concerns. Obviously, his senior season cut short. Only played in 6 games with an ankle injury. He was blocking on special teams. They rolled up into his ankle, bent him backwards, broke his ankle, had to have surgery. And so he missed 7 games this season for his Virginia squad. And this is a guy that when I look at him, if that injury doesn't take place, you're probably talking about a guy that goes in the 2nd or 3rd round. So you needed a starting corner. This guy's a starting caliber corner in the NFL. And so love this selection for you. Think it's a steal, actually, where you got him in the 5th round. This is a no worse than a 3rd round corner. I had him as a 4th round corner because of the injury. You still get him in the 5th round. That's tremendous value for me. And because of it, in the 5th round, 158th overall selection, cornerback out of Virginia, Bryce Hall for me is a 4. I think this is tremendous value for you. And if he comes back healthy, and it's not like he was a speed demon to begin with. If he comes back the same guy, you got yourself a big-time steal in the 5th round. And my comp for him is Chris Gamble, the former Ohio State product, drafted in the 1st round by the Carolina Panthers once upon a time. Long, big corner that could run a bit. And can do a little something, and I see a lot of the same things in Bryce Hall. Chris Gamble had a long career. I see Bryce Hall having the potential to have much of the same. As we wrap up this impressive Jets draft here in the 6th round, 191st pick overall, punter out of Texas A&M, Braden Mann is the selection, 5'11", $198. He's a kicker or a specialist. I have only one rule regarding specialists. And as long as you abide by that rule, we have no problems and no issues. You don't take a specialist before the 5th round. 5th round and later, I'm all good with it. Anything before that, I got a problem with it. You took him in the 6th round, no issues from me. I'll give you some strengths and some weaknesses, and we'll get out of here. Some strengths, career average of just under 49 yards per punt. He had a season in 2017 where he set the NCAA record for 51 yards per punt for the entire season. That's an insane number, folks, by the way. As an open field tackler, this guy had 10 stops in the last 2 years, so not afraid to get dirty and help his teammates out and get a guy down on the ground and push him out of bounds. That's big time. You know, a lot of kickers want no smoke in the returns game. If they got to get in there and tackle, it's not good. It's not good, and this guy's not afraid. So kickoff specialist, able to force touchbacks. That's something he's done for the last few years of his career at Texas A&M with a big leg. So that's also something that you can say is a strength. And then he has pooch kicking techniques that deaden the football near the goal line. He was one of the most prolific kickers in college football at trapping teams inside the 5 and 10 yard line. And so has the ability to flip the field position, did it routinely for Texas A&M. He was a real weapon for them, and that's why you pull the trigger on a guy like this in the 6th round. Weaknesses. I talked about the big leg. He can outkick his coverage at times. That's part of the reason why I'm talking about a guy that's made this many tackles in his career, because he's outkicking his coverage. Guys are able to then set up a good return, and then he's got to get involved himself. He's going to need to put a little bit more hang time on the football, which allows his coverage unit to get down there and field the punt. Had a punt blocked for a touchdown this year. That means you need to speed up your process. You know, from the point of catch to the toe touching the football, that needs to be a faster process if you're having a kick blocked and then scooped and scored. So you'd like to see him clean it up. Obviously, I didn't see it. So it could have been a breakdown in protection. Somebody didn't do their job, let a guy turn the guy free and gets a kick blocked. But, you know, you get a kick blocked. There could be one sole party. It could be a lot of different factors, or he could have just had a slow process. Whatever the case may be, you don't like to see it. So in any event, got you a kicker, 6th round, 191st pick overall. Braden Mann for me is a 2 to wrap up this very impressive draft turned in by new GM of the Jets, Joe Douglas. So when I had a chance to tally it up, and if you want the grading rubric for what I do here and the score for the Jets, it's down in the description of this video. But here it is right here. There's the number. 3.44 is what the Jets were able to put forth in this draft, which constitutes the grade of a B. It's a really good draft, one of the better ones I've seen the Jets put forth here in the last few years. So it's a great start for Joe Douglas as the Jets GM. I'm anxious to see where this goes, but this is a great start. This is a nice little foundation and a building block for what may be to come with this Jets football team moving forward. Love this draft. Want to see if these guys turn out to be really good football players for the Jets or not. That being said, I'm your man Louie T signing off. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not, I repeat, not the best NFL coverage it could be. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. If you haven't already done so, what are you waiting on? Subscribe to the channel, more great content coming your way. Make sure you turn on that notification bell so you don't miss anything here and you're up to speed on all the latest uploads and live shows. Also, if you want to follow me and stay abreast of what's going on here, best way to do it is on socials, whether it's Twitter at Louie T Network on Twitter or IG Louie T Network _ on IG. Follow me there so you don't miss a thing. That being said, you guys take care of yourselves amidst all of this nonsense. Make sure you stay safe, and we'll reconvene at a later date and time. Until then, take care. Have a good one.